I sat at the end of the long oak table, the screen at my back casting a cold glow across the conference room. Numbers appeared in bold red 42 out of 100. My chest tightened as if the air had been sucked out of the room. Just 3 months earlier, my review had been an 89. I'd rescued 2 failing audits, cut compliance risks in half, and trained half a dozen new hires. Now, the company's system called me a liability. Across from me, Clara Finch. My direct manager couldn't hold my gaze. Her usual brisk efficiency was gone. She shuffled papers she didn't need, her fingers trembling as they tapped the tablet. "Clara," I said, my voice rough. "This isn't possible. You've seen my numbers. You know the projects I've led." Her throat worked as she swallowed. "The metrics don't lie. Eleanor." But someone had... I leaned forward, scrolling through the detailed breakdown. Words like ineffective communication and poor integration filled the screen, contradicting everything I'd done. Each sentence read like a stranger's failures, not mine. Then, as Clara adjusted the projector, the slide flickered. For less than a second, a hidden document flashed up a table with bold letters. Target Q2 employees. My name was there, alongside others I barely recognized. Clara's hand shot to the keyboard, shutting it down so fast the screen went black. We both froze. The silence pressed between us. Her face had gone pale. She pushed back her chair, scraping the floor. "You should resign today," she whispered, her voice urgent and unsteady. "Please, don't wait." My pulse hammered. Resign after everything I had given this place. Nights in the office when the city outside had gone to sleep. Weekends spent double-checking safety protocols while my friends lived lives I never allowed myself. All of it swept aside with a single red number. "Clara." "What is this?" I demanded. She gathered her papers, avoiding my eyes. "You don't understand. You don't want to understand. Just leave while you still can." I watched her stand, shoulders tight, then retreat toward the door, leaving me alone with the projector's faint hum. My years of loyalty reduced to a glowing red score and one whispered warning. When I finally gathered my bag and stepped into the hallway, the envelope she had left on the table burned in my hand, heavier than paper should ever feel. I carried the envelope out of the building as if it might ignite in my hands. Clara had pressed it against my arm, her voice low and frantic. "Don't read it here. Just leave." I didn't dare open it in the parking lot or on the train ride home. The weight of it sat in my bag all the way back to my apartment, as heavy as a brick. Only when I was inside, blinds drawn and shoes kicked off, did I tear it open. A header stared up at me in corporate blue strategic talent reduction program. I read the first page, then the second, then forced myself through the rest, though my eyes blurred. It wasn't a restructuring memo or a downsizing plan. It was a playbook for dismantling employees, a manual on how to bleed confidence from people like me until we surrendered and walked away. The tactics were chillingly precise. Reassign high-profile projects to others, schedule impossible deadlines, then record the failures, exclude from meetings, then document uninformed behavior, generate performance reviews with fabricated shortcomings. Each bullet point matched exactly what had begun happening to me. On the third page, my name appeared, bold and undeniable Marlowe. Eleanor separation expected Q2. I dropped the papers onto my kitchen table, my hands shaking. Images flooded me. Nights spent combing through compliance regulations. Weekends sacrificed to prepare audit reports. The emergency review I once led that saved the company from $1 million fine. Every ounce of loyalty rewritten as incompetence in their script. I turned to the final page. The signature at the bottom froze me in place. Adrian Sloan. Chief Operating Officer. I could still see him in my memory. Glass raised at the Christmas gala, praising my work in front of the entire department. "Eleanor is the reason we're ahead of the curve," he'd said, and I had blushed with pride. Now his name authorized my erasure. The papers lay between my hands like evidence at a trial. I knew then that what I had seen in that conference room wasn't a mistake, it was a sentence, and they expected me to carry it out myself. The next morning, I woke to the vibration of my phone. An email from Human Resources sat at the top of my inbox, the subject line polite and final, confirmation of resignation. I read it 3 times before my vision steadied. "We acknowledge your verbal resignation to your supervisor, effective immediately. Please accept our best wishes for your future endeavors." My breath caught. I had never resigned. A sharp knock rattled my door. When I opened it, a courier stood holding a brown box. Inside were my framed compliance certificates, the potted succulent from my desk, and a severance packet offering 2 weeks' pay in exchange for waiving legal claims. I didn't sign. I couldn't even bring myself to touch the papers. By afternoon, whispers began circulating in the apartment building. In the laundry room, I overheard one neighbor telling another that I'd had some kind of breakdown at work. "Screaming in a meeting," she said, shaking her head. My face burned hot, but I said nothing. Their words confirmed what the company wanted if they controlled the story. Then I was already erased. I tried calling Clara. Straight to voicemail. I texted, "Why are they saying I resigned?" No reply. The silence was louder than any confession. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at the strategic talent reduction program spread before me. Each bullet point now felt like prophecy fulfilled. The praise from Sloan at the gala, the handshakes from colleagues, even the easy smiles of my team, all of it replayed in my mind like poisoned memories. Yesterday's flicker of the slide, the word target, Clara's trembling hands, it all snapped together into something undeniable. Everything was contaminated. Every achievement, every word of thanks, every moment of pride had been bent into ammunition against me. I closed the email, pushed the severance packet aside, and stared at the shadows stretching across my apartment walls. If they could forge my resignation so effortlessly, I needed to know what else they were capable of and how many others had been marked before me. Maya Ellison knocked on my door just after sunset, holding 2 paper cups of coffee. She lived across the hall and worked in accounting for the same company, though in a different division. I hadn't spoken to her in weeks, but tonight her eyes carried the same unease I felt in my own chest. "I heard what they're saying about you," she began, setting the cups on my table. "That you had some kind of outburst, I don't believe it." She pushed her glasses up the bridge of her nose, then leaned closer. "I've seen things, Eleanor. Numbers that don't add up." I straightened. "What kind of numbers?" She lowered her voice. "Expense reports? Every few weeks. Charges posted to a cost center called Talent Management Initiatives. Training seminars with no participants. Consultant fees with no consultants. Special projects with no deliverables. At first I thought it was sloppy reporting, but then I noticed the timing. I gripped my cup, though I hadn't touched the coffee. Timing with what? With resignations, she said. Every unusual expense is followed, within days, by someone leaving. Not underperformance cases, people with strong records. I've tracked 23 in the last year alone. My stomach tightened. 23. Faces flickered in my mind, colleagues who had vanished with little explanation. One name stabbed sharper than the rest, Lyle Caldwell. I murmured. Maya nodded. Data analyst. Right. He's in the ledger. His resignation lined up with a large consultant payout. You knew him. I closed my eyes, remembering the day Lyle had been cornered after questioning the validity of a new testing protocol. I'd spoken up for him in that meeting, and soon after, he was gone. Official word said he resigned voluntarily. I had believed it. The room felt smaller, the walls pressing in. 23 careers erased, disguised with vague expenses. My own name had simply been added to the pattern. Maya's hand brushed the file she carried. I kept copies, but if they know I've seen this, I'll be next. Her words hung in the air, heavy and undeniable, pushing me toward the one thing I dreaded most, finding out just how deep this went. The cafe was tucked beneath the rumble of South Station, a place where commuters lingered with paper cups and tired eyes. I chose it because its corners were dim, the kind of place where whispers could disappear into the hiss of the espresso machine. One by one, they arrived. Blake Chen, once a meticulous quality inspector, carried a folder bulging with old reviews' perfect scores, all of them until the year he questioned a shortcut in testing standards. Mina Jordan, sharp-eyed from regulatory compliance, set down her notebook like a shield. Rachel Torres, who had led safety audits, sat stiffly, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles blanched. We traded stories in hushed voices, each tale echoing the same pattern. Glowing records turned to sudden failures, impossible deadlines, accusations of insubordination, careers dismantled step by step until resignation was the only escape. Then Damian Holt spoke, his bitterness rough as gravel. I tried reporting it. He said, voice shaking, filed a complaint with HR, sent them every file I had. Next morning, my email was gone, wiped clean, like I'd never worked there at all. He stared into his cup, shoulders hunched. That's what they do, erase you. Silence pressed on us until the scrape of a chair broke it. One man, whom I barely knew, stood abruptly. He muttered something about needing air, but the way he clutched his phone, eyes darting to the door, told another story. Hours later, I learned the truth. He'd gone straight to HR for a job referral. The betrayal struck harder than I expected, sharper even than the lies the company spread. Fear made even the wounded turn against each other. Blake swore under his breath. Mina lowered her eyes, and Rachel whispered, "If even we can't trust each other, what chance do we have?" I folded my hands over the table, heart pounding. Their doubt was heavy. But heavier still was the knowledge that I couldn't stop now. Not when the ledger already held my name. Not when silence had allowed 23 others to vanish. I told them we would meet again, whether they believed in it or not, and I walked out into the night determined to find something stronger than fear to hold us together. The email arrived without subject or signature, only a single line of text, Garage C, Level 3, 4 p.m. I read it 3 times, weighing whether it was bait, a trap designed to finish what the company had started. But fear gave way to a sharper instinct, curiosity mixed with a stubborn refusal to be erased. At exactly 4, I pulled into the echoing garage. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, washing the concrete in a sickly glow. My hands gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles whitened. A car rolled up 2 spaces away, its driver's window lowered just enough for me to see a face I recognized faintly from the cafeteria, Victor Hale, a database administrator I had spoken to maybe twice. He didn't step out fully. Instead, he leaned just close enough to call softly, "Check under your passenger seat when I walk away. Don't look at me. Don't wave." Then he straightened, adjusted his jacket like nothing unusual had happened, and disappeared into the elevator. My pulse thundered as I reached down. A small thumb drive rested against the carpet, black casing marked with a single word scratched into tape insurance. At home. I slid it into my laptop, half expecting malware. Instead, folders opened in neat order, 5 years of files, more damning than anything I could have imagined. Spreadsheets listing employees marked as targets, scripts instructing managers how to gaslight and isolate them, templates for falsified reviews, even Clara's electronic signatures approving fabricated reports. I scrolled further. A tab labeled Monitoring Phase made my stomach twist. Victor's name appeared halfway down, slated for review in the next cycle. He had risked everything by handing this to me. At the bottom, one file stood apart, a draft speech by Adrian Sloan for the upcoming National Innovation Summit. Its title glared back, Building a Culture of Integrity. I stared at the words until the screen blurred, rage rising sharp and cold. Proof filled my hands, enough to burn the company to the ground if I dared to use it. And I knew then that I couldn't face this war alone. Not anymore. 3 days passed with the thumb drive hidden in my desk drawer, its weight pressing on me even when I wasn't touching it. I barely slept, pacing the apartment, reading and rereading the files until the words burned into my memory. Each name in those spreadsheets was a reminder that I wasn't the only one they had dismantled. Then came the call. A recruiter from a rival firm in Chicago spoke with bright confidence, her voice smooth as polished glass. They wanted me. They had followed my work, admired my track record. They offered double my current salary, relocation package, a corner office. The only condition was silence. I would sign a strict non-disclosure agreement, promising never to speak of what had happened. My chest tightened. The offer was everything I had been denied: security, recognition, a chance to start fresh. For a moment, I imagined myself boarding a plane to Chicago, leaving the nightmare behind. But the thought curdled as quickly as it came. Taking that job would mean leaving Victor, who had already risked his life by handing me the drive. It would mean abandoning the 23 names Maya had traced in her ledger and the countless others already marked. That night, I sat on the floor of my apartment, the photograph of my father balanced against my knees. He had worked 30 years in a factory, his hands scarred from machines that weren't properly safeguarded. When he died, it was because of a defective device that cut corners for profit. I had chosen compliance not just as a career, but as penance. How could I turn away now? The next morning, I declined the offer. My voice didn't waver as I told the recruiter no. Instead, I opened my laptop and began drafting messages, reaching out to the people I had met at the cafe, asking them to meet again. On my calendar, I circled the date of the National Innovation Summit in New York. Adrian Sloan's keynote was printed in bold on the agenda, and I knew that was where the truth had to surface. My apartment had never felt so small. Chairs borrowed from neighbors crowded around the kitchen table, the floor lined with people sitting cross-legged, their faces drawn with sleepless nights. 15 former employees answered my call, some with partners beside them for strength, others clutching nothing but nervous energy and half-empty coffee cups. I placed Victor's files in the center, the thumb drive connected to my laptop. The room went silent as I scrolled through the evidence scripts for falsifying reviews, timelines for breaking people down, the list of names. Whispers rose when familiar colleagues appeared on the screen, those who had simply vanished from the company roster. "This is it," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "This is the proof they can't ignore. And in 3 weeks, Sloan will be standing on stage preaching integrity to the entire industry. That's when we show them what integrity looks like." The debate erupted immediately. Blake Chen spoke first, his voice cracking. I lost my daughter's respect. She watched me fall apart and I couldn't explain why. I want to do this, but I can't lose another piece of her. Mina Jordan leaned forward, her hand trembling. "If they blacklist us, I'll lose my house. My kids need stability more than they need my pride." The room wavered between courage and fear until I forced my voice above the noise. Silence is exactly how they win. Every one of us stayed quiet, and look where it got us erased, humiliated, broken. This is our chance to stop it. A heavy pause followed. Then Blake stood, shoulders squared. I'm in, one by one. Others joined. 4 left quietly before the night ended, their fear too heavy. 11 remained. We rehearsed what we would say if questioned, practiced reading documents aloud, created digital backups on hidden servers, and drafted anonymous leaks to media outlets. Still, I saw it in their eyes, the weight of risk pressing down, the possibility that if even one of us faltered, everything would collapse. By dawn, my apartment looked like a war room, and circled on the calendar above my desk, the date of the summit loomed closer with every heartbeat. The Grand Hyatt ballroom shimmered beneath chandeliers, the air thick with the low hum of executives greeting investors and reporters. Banners draped across the walls read, "Innovation with integrity," words so hollow they made my stomach twist. Security moved through the crowd with sharp eyes, their earpieces glinting under the lights. At 10:15 during a scheduled networking break, my phone buzzed. Blake's message appeared in stark letters. They took the folder. Plan A is dead. My pulse spiked. Without the hard copies, our impact would shrink to whispers. But seconds later, another message flashed, this one from Victor, hidden in the audio-visual control booth. Plan B, ready. I nodded to the others scattered through the ballroom. At 11:55, the lights dimmed, and Adrian Sloan strode toward the stage with his usual smug composure. He adjusted his tie, preparing to deliver his sermon on ethics. But before his slides could appear, the projector flickered, the logo vanishing. In its place, an email filled the screen. Sloan to HR, subject line, Strategic Talent Reduction Program. Murmurs swelled into a roar. Phones lifted. Camera flashes cut through the dark. Sloan froze mid-step. I rose from my seat, my voice carrying farther than I expected. That's my name. Eleanor Marlowe. I raised safety concerns, and they destroyed my career for it. Across the room, Blake stood. Mina. Damien. Rachel. One by one. The others rose, claiming their stories, their betrayals. 11 voices filling the cavernous hall. Sloane's mask cracked. Security. Remove them, he barked. But before anyone moved, Clara entered from the side aisle, her face pale but resolute. It's true, she said, her voice trembling. I falsified Eleanor's review. I was ordered to do it. Gasps rippled. And then Rachel stepped forward, holding her phone. The room fell silent as Sloane's own voice played over the speakers. Resign quietly, or we'll ensure your reputation is ruined. The chaos broke like a wave. Journalists shouted questions. Investors rushed toward the exits. A woman near the stage raised her badge. Charlotte Reed, Department of Labor. This appears to be systemic harassment. We will investigate. Sloane's face drained of color as the ballroom turned against him, and I knew the reckoning had only just begun. The weeks after the summit blurred into headlines, subpoenas, and boardroom purges. Adrian Sloane's downfall came swiftly, his signature on the talent reduction files impossible to deny. Alongside him, 5 other executives were escorted out of the company, their golden reputations shattered by the evidence Victor had risked everything to deliver. Class action suits multiplied almost overnight. Names once buried in silence now resurfaced in legal documents, each story echoing Mind's stellar performance records twisted into failures, resignations forged, lives dismantled. For the first time, the company faced what it had spent years avoiding consequences. In an irony I could never have scripted. Clara Finch was appointed to lead the new Employee Advocacy Office. Her eyes still carried the weight of guilt, but she met me once for coffee and said softly, "I'll spend the rest of my career making sure what I did to you never happens again." I believed her. Victor, though, paid the heaviest price. His testimony was the keystone of every case, but it placed him in danger. When the trials began, he vanished into a witness protection program. No goodbyes, just a brief encrypted message. "Stay loud. That's the only way we win." Then came the call from the company's board. They wanted me back: promotion, salary, authority. They said it was their way of apologizing. For a moment, I considered what it would feel like to walk back through those glass doors as a victor. But I had already chosen. Instead, I signed the papers for my own consulting firm, dedicated to ethical compliance and employee advocacy. My first client was a small manufacturer, terrified of falling into the same traps I had exposed. As I shook their hands, I felt something I hadn't in years: control over my own story. That evening, pen still warm from signing the contract, I whispered to myself, "They begged me to quit." I never went back because I finally understood my worth. And with that, I knew my fight had never been about revenge, but about ensuring no one else would ever be silenced the way we had been.